Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 2. I was going to try to make a quick video, but I should have known I wouldn't be able to get it all in one video. And so I'm going to try to continue with what I was talking about. And the point that I was trying to make in my last video is that oil does not normally come out of the rock. Over here in Deuteronomy 32:13 it says, "He made him to ride of the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock and oil out of the flinty rock." Okay, so oil does not normally come out of a rock, but as I mentioned earlier, it's a story about two rocks, and it's also a story about two trees. Okay, and I had made a video before about how I was looking for images of the Bible represented as the tree of life, and I came across this video over here that was talking about a rock that looked like a tree that was cut down, and it was mentioning scriptures in the Bible about the tree of life, and one of the scriptures that it mentioned was the one in Genesis 8:11, which makes the number 118 backwards. So again, I believe this represents the year 2018, and this is where it says, "And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off, and so Noah knew that the waters were abated from the earth." And in this video it was saying how this was the only tree that survived the flood. You can see that over here. It says in the flood story we hear about a tree which survived the flood. Okay, and that tree was the olive tree, and again that was coming up in Genesis 8:11. Okay, so if you go to Romans 11, this is where it talks about the olive tree. It's actually made up of two olive trees that are represented by the Jews and the Gentiles, but they both partake of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. So of course the fatness that it's talking about here is Jesus, and I've mentioned before how this is a parallel to Zechariah 4:11. I had mentioned how in Zechariah 4:11, which again is a parallel of Revelation 11:4, which also talks about two candlesticks and two olive trees, but in Zechariah 4:11 it says, "Then answered I and said unto him, What are these two olive trees on the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again and said unto him, What be these two olive branches which through the two golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. And he said, These are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth." And of course in the New Testament we're told that we are to watch and pray in order to be accounted worthy to stand before the Lord of the whole earth. And it's the 144,000 who stand with Jesus on Mount Zion, and this is in Zechariah 4:14. But over here where it says these are the two anointed ones, in the Hebrew it actually says these are the two sons of the oil. And I've talked about before how this oil is not just any oil. This is a clear shining oil, and so I'll pull that up. You can see that Strong's number 3323, and it's used 23 times in the New Testament. So again, that seems to allude to DNA, but you can see it says fresh oil, shining pure oil, but in the Greek there was no word for this particular type of oil, and so they used a word that means quality, and this word is used one time in the New Testament, and that's in Romans 11:17, where it talks about the fatness of the olive tree that both the Jews and the Gentiles, the two witnesses, partake of. And again, that's coming up in verse 17. I've also talked about how it's in Ezekiel 37, verse 17, where the two sticks are joined together. Okay, so if you look at images of Zechariah 4, especially in Zechariah 4:11, I'll just switch it to that. You can see that it shows the two olive trees, and I've talked before how I believe that the two olive trees represent the two witnesses. You see the same type of imagery in Revelation 11 verse 4. So Zechariah 4:11 is a parallel to Revelation 11:4, and so again you have the two olive trees, which are also two candlesticks. Okay, so we're told in Romans 11 verse 17 that both the Jews and the Gentiles partake of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. And it's in Ezekiel 37 verses 17 to 18 that the two sticks, which again represent the Jews and the Gentiles, are joined together. Over here it says, and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. And when the children of the people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Okay, I'll just read the next verse from here. It says, say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel and his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. So the two become one here in verse 19, actually verses 17 through 19, but it's in 17 and 18 that the two are joined together. And so, as I've mentioned before, I believe this represents the Jews and the Gentiles, but I've also talked about how it represents DNA, and that's why it comes up in Romans 11 as well as in Zechariah 4:11 and Revelation 11:4. They basically both show the same imagery, which is the two witnesses. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing all of that up is because I think it sheds a lot of light on this parable that Jesus told about the 10 virgins, the 5 wise, and the 5 foolish virgins, and how the 5 wise virgins had oil in their lamps, but the 5 foolish virgins didn't have any oil in their lamps. And so I just want to go over this parable because I think you'll find some of the terms over here interesting. And so I'll just read it from here. It says, then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. And I'll get into the exact words that are in here in just a minute. And then it says, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all of those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said to the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there not be enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Okay, so you had the 10 virgins, and they all went out to meet the bridegroom, and they took their lamps with them. And if you look at the word lamps, it's the word lambas in the Greek, and in the plural it's lambadas or lambades. And so I want to show you an image of that, but first I just want to mention that I think there's a misconception over here about where it says that then all the virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. There's a lot of people who talk about trimming your lamps and making sure your lamps are trimmed, and I don't think they understand what the word trim means. The word trim actually means to decorate. It's the word that you get cosmetics from, or the word cosmos from. But it means to put in order, arrange, make ready, prepare, to ornament, adorn, to embellish with honor. And so they actually, all 10 of them actually decorated their lamps. And so I'll show you an image of what a lambada looks like. Okay, I'll show you this one first. This is the word lambadas, and if you look at the images of that, you see what that looks like and how they're decorated. And then if you look at it in the singular, which is the word lambada, it over here has an S, but it usually doesn't have the S at the end. You can see what that looks like. I just put the S back on just so you can see what came up with the S, and so that's why I took the S off, because you can get more images of what it looks like if you take the S off. But that's the singular, and that's the plural. Okay, so they all decorated their lamps, but only the 5 wise had oil in their lamps. Okay, so this word is different than the word candlestick. It's almost depicted backwards usually, because if you look at the word for candlestick in Revelation 2:5, it says, "Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly and remove thy candlestick out of its place, except thou repent." If you look at the word candlestick, it's this word over here, which is the word lichnia. And there's another form of this word, which I'll show you in a minute. But if you look at images of this word, it looks like this. So it shows a menorah. Okay, and the other form of this word is lichnos, which is Strong's number 3088. And again, 88 is a number representing Jesus, and then you have the number 30, just like you do with God's name. It begins with the number 30, and then it's 68, but over here you have 88. And so this also means a lamp and a candle. But if you look at images of this word, it looks more like this type of a lamp, which is usually what they show the 10 virgins holding, but I don't believe that's what they're actually holding. I believe they're holding candlesticks. And what's interesting is that this word is in the feminine. It's actually Strong's number 3087, the one before this one. If you go to the previous Strong's numbers, 3087, it's lichnia. And so this one is in the feminine. Okay, I'll just show you that. If you look at lichnia, you see that it's in the feminine. And then if you look at lichnos, that's in the masculine. And so all these are masculine. And so you have 2 forms of this word. And the masculine is depicted like this, and the feminine is depicted like the menorah, the 7 candlesticks, which of course represents the bride. Okay, if you go back to Zechariah 4:2, you see that there's a bowl on top of the 7 candlesticks that feeds oil to the 7 candlesticks, and in the Greek this word is lambadion. And so I looked up the word lambadion, and you can see over here that it means candlelight, and also looked at it on Google Translate, and it also means candlelight. Of course, Jesus is the light of the world. And in Zechariah 4:11, or Zechariah 4:2 actually, it has a bowl that actually feeds the 7 candlesticks. And so I believe that's why lichnos is in the masculine, and it's depicted as a lamp, and lichnia is in the feminine, and it's depicted as a menorah, because I believe that the lamp pours out the oil to feed the 7 candlesticks, which represent the bride. And also because it's Strong's number 3088, which I believe represents Jesus, and the one in the feminine is 3087. It's the one before that. Okay, so it was the 5 wise that actually had oil in their lamps. They all went out with their lamps, and they all decorated their lamps, but only the 5 wise actually had oil in their lamps.